Welcome to the Real Estate Show on WGBF AM with your host, Charlie Butler. This is where you'll learn to sell your home quickly and for more money. And now, the host of the Real Estate Show, the guy who guarantees to sell your home or he'll buy it himself, Charlie Butler.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. This is Charlie Butler, and this is the Charlie Butler Real Estate Show. We are missing one of our people today. Evie Barr is gone to a conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. Evie got the rough duty there, having to go to Scottsdale. And so if you're listening, if you're streaming this, Evie, we're going to talk bad about you, but have fun out there. Evie will be back next week, but we'll try to muddle along without her. This week, we do have a special treat. We've got newly elected County Commissioner Cheryl Musgrave. Good morning, Cheryl.
Well, good morning to you, Charlie. I really appreciate you bringing me on the show. And, you know, Sunday morning is my favorite time of the whole week, so this is the best.
It is, and we always enjoy talking to you, and I never, because I don't want Cheryl to hit me, I never call her a politician. You know, so
I'm a public servant.
She truly is a public servant. Cheryl, people, Evie and I always make this a conversationalist type show, and that didn't come out right, but you know what I meant. So I'm going to ask you right up front. People have heard me endorse you during the primary or during the election on this show. I encourage anybody that really cared about real estate to get out and vote for you. Why do you think real estate is so important to you?
Well, real estate really is fundamentally important to our whole community. You have to live somewhere, and you're most likely living on land. And the transfers of that land and how it's taxed play a huge role in our lives. You know, I can tell stories all day long, but let me just tell you this. When you buy a house, you have the component part of your mortgage payment, the insurance payment, and the property taxes. You should really take a strong look at that.
Yeah.
Property taxes. Yeah, those are the taxes that they force you to pay, or they're going to sell your house if you don't, and they're going to take it right out from underneath you. So I spent 10 years as your county assessor. Sometimes I laughingly, but maybe not laughing so hard, call that 10 long years as your county assessor.
You did a great job.
It's so sweet of you to say so. Basically, by the end of those 10 years, everybody in the whole community is mad at you because at one time or another, you did something and they remember it.
And that's true, but something that while we're on that subject, something that a lot of people may or may not know is you, and I guess you came to the realtors with this idea. I consider you very responsible for the Vanderbilt County Assessor's website, which has been so good for so many people.
You know, I had the honor, the luxury of being the very first assessor in the state of Indiana to put any information out on the website. And I started with a bare bones, here's about your property taxes. And I put out a plea on the very first webpage. Could anybody out there help me basically figure out how the assessment software that we had worked so that we could dive into it and put that information online? Well, some people laughed at me for putting that out there, but they weren't laughing when somebody actually came forward saying, yeah, I can figure that out. We can take that apart and we can put that online for you. You only need $10,000. That's how much we estimate that it'll cost. Well, I didn't think that was very much. And I found a way in my assessment budget to stop doing one thing so that I could free up $10,000. I was so proud. I went to county council and I said, hey, could you please just transfer it from this spot to that spot so that I can do that? And they said, oh, well, we'll be happy to take the $10,000 back, which they did. And they didn't give it to me to do this website. I was crushed. And Charlie, I reached out to the assessment community. You guys pulled through. I may have been in the spot to make it happen, but I couldn't have made it happen without your money. So private donors in the professional real estate community put the money up. I got the programmers to create the website and to the data to put on there. So I was the first in Indiana. I think there were 2 or 3 assessors across the country in really big towns. Maybe New York City.
There wasn't much.
It wasn't, not very many. So I put it out there. That was just the start of the change. But let me tell you why that change was important. Because if you were a realtor or a homeowner and you wanted to find out more details about your property taxes, You had to call down to the assessment office, or you had to go there. But if you called, all the township assessors had a 3-call limit, three request limit. You could call up and ask for 3 pieces of property, the record card, and they would fax that to you. But then you had to call back the following day to get another one. So your hands were tied. And if you went down in person, you were likely asked why you wanted to know. And they would write that down and tell the township assessor. I just thought that was a terrible intrusion, first of all, into your privacy. It's no one's business why you need to know this information. It's a public record. And then secondly, I just felt it was holding back business. I mean, everybody needed to know details about the property, whether it was just the total assessed valuation or whether it was how many bedrooms were in it so that you could do a comparison, that sort of thing. So that was a big, big step when I released that information.
Well, and that was, speaking as a realtor, that was a revolutionary move. And something else that you and the realtors agreed on, I remember when you guys were kind of working this out, that you would never charge anyone for this.
Yeah, because the money came from the private sector to do this, that was the agreement, that they would not charge on a per record basis.
And as there are several, and it's their business, they can charge if they want to, but in Kentucky, almost, those of us that are also licensed in Kentucky, almost every county charges. Here, and the funny thing is, and I don't want to disparage any other assessors in other counties, but after some of the realtors and other people raised this money for Vandenberg County, the realtors thought, well, we should do this for the other counties. And we offered it to all the counties in the area, and I think we were only taken up twice.
Oh, that's a shame.
Most of them thought we were crazy, that this internet thing would never take off.
Well, you know what we need to celebrate, Charlie? I am pretty sure, and I'll have to go back through my scrapbooks to make sure, but I think that I opened that website in 1997. So I think this is
right around that time,
20 years that this has been out there.
And we take it for granted. It's like it's been there forever,
Right. Yeah. So I think we actually have to schedule a party. Maybe we should have
That
cake.
would be great. Yeah, because you don't know how much time you saved us. The regular homeowner, forget about the realtors for a second, but the regular homeowner that needs to maybe appeal their taxes, and they have to go through all the red tape and all the inconvenience of having to go to the down there for everything, where now they can get all that information online. Well,
and the sales records too.
Oh yeah, very important.
Much later. I think it was much later that the legislature allowed me to put the sales records on. Maybe 2-3 years, maybe. So I think you can go back on the website, and for any property that's sold, there were a whole bunch of records that were gathered before they allowed us to make it public. So we released all of them. I think you can get sales records back to 1986. Now,
it's pretty far back.
It's real far.
Yeah, it's back in the 80s. I can't remember the exact year, but I've seen them back in the 80s.
Yeah, so that's kind of a history walk through history to look at something that old. It's like meaningless to what your property is worth right now on the market. But the sales records were the second set of records that we put out there. And then lastly, the piece that was so wonderful was to combine that with the digitized map, the GIS system. Now, we all have GIS on our phones and in our cars, but back then I had to keep explaining to people what a digital map was. And I got very high-powered people just look at me and say, nobody's ever asked me for that. You really don't need that.
Yeah.
And again, I had to fight to get that. And we have still one of the very best systems in the country right here in Vandenberg County. This time County Council and the mayor, who was then Frank McDonald, they did fund it, but they funded the best system, which we got for a bare bones price. I mean, we really did a good job pulling together experts who weren't parts of highly paid teams. We used people who knew how to do it, but were willing to come and work with us one-on-one. So we have one of the best systems in the country still today. I'm very proud of it.
If I don't forget, I'll get wrapped up here, Cheryl, but Bobby's over here always reminds me, you are listening to the Charlie Butler Real Estate Show with our special guest, County Commissioner, newly elected County Commissioner Cheryl Musgrave. And congratulations again.
Thank you very much. A little over 2 weeks on the job now.
Yes, and your first meeting, I think,
We've
right?
had two, and we'll have another one on Tuesday.
So, Cheryl, we've been talking about you as the assessor For the few people out there who don't know you, you want to do a quick run through as far as your history in public life?
Well, it was that 10 years as assessor, which was from 1995 until 2005 or 4. And then in 2005, I was elected commissioner. And I stayed there until the middle of 2007. I was so happy there. I really wanted to stay. But Governor Daniels had me in his office on the other side of his desk telling me that I was the only person who could help him solve the property tax crisis that he was having in the middle of 2007. It was so bad for him that there were protest marches in cities like Fort Wayne, and they had little people had erected shanties all around the State House lawn and were living on them, protesting their high property taxes. He knew what he needed to have done, and he was looking for a strong, honest person to take care of it. And he told me, and this was after I'd already refused the job 2 weeks before, but he told me to my face that I was the only person in the whole state who could handle this. And so with great...
No pressure.
Yeah. It's like, oh, gee. So with great reluctance, because I love Evansville, I had children at home, but with great reluctance, I agreed to come up for a little while. So I stayed there for a year and a half and made tremendous changes, and we can talk about those later. Then I came back, and then this past year I decided to run for the office that I love the most, which is commissioner, and the voters saw fit to return me, and I'm so grateful to them.
We talked a minute ago, and I don't mean to keep backing up to assessor.
That's okay.
I think this is going to tie in here to your current role as county commissioner, Cheryl. When you're in there as assessor, or you now, Bill Flutie, or you then, Bill Flutie today, challenges are probably about the same. What are the challenges, and what are the goals to try to overcome those challenges?
Well, the challenge, I think, from the taxpayer's point of view, is to get the right number. What is your property worth? And so the assessor has to contend with, do I have enough staff to get there? Do I have the right training for my staff? Do I have enough time? So that's what they're working with, and also the laws. When folks receive their property tax bill in the mail, they look at the number it's worth, let's say $100,000, and they're going, wait, it can't be worth that. I just had an appraisal and it said it's worth, $110,000. I'm happy with this $100,000 assessment, but now I'm wondering about my appraisal. Well, the assessor's looking a year back at least, because he had to have time to get that assessment together. So they're looking at January 1st of the prior year as their valuation date. And when you get the bill, it's like almost 18 months later. So there is a time lag. So you have a communication issue with your taxpayer. So those are a couple of the challenges that the assessor has: time, training, money, communication.
Those are the challenges. How do you overcome that?
Well, I think the assessor has to really make a point of wanting to do it and understand that the assessments that they put on the property are deeply meaningful in today's world. For example, I know that in the real estate world, you go out and list property for people all the time.
Right.
And let's say you've decided that this house is worth, well, let's just pick a number like $150,000. And you've done your work and you've got your comparable properties and you're putting it out there on the market with your name on a sign probably saying, this house is worth $150,000.
Correct.
Well, savvy buyers, are going to the website I built, and they're looking it up on the assessor's website, and the assessor has it down for $100,000. So the buyer is thinking in their mind, well, the assessor is supposed to arrive at market value. I think this seller is just trying to gouge me. And so they're looking at a distance between values that does not lend them confidence, first, in two places. They aren't confident that the real estate marketplace is being fair to them, or they're not confident that the government's doing a good job of being fair in their assessments all across the property.
And Cheryl, you're right, because it's put us in the uncomfortable position of now, and either as your example with the buyer or that $150,000 property, if it's assessed at $200,000,
right,
and the seller saying the assessor says it's worth he assessed it, he says it's worth $200,000, and we're in the uncomfortable position saying the assessment really has nothing to do with the value anymore.
And that's not state law.
But it's not good
Right.
that we're having to do that now. But it's just real. It's real world right now.
And I'm hearing more and more of these stories. And so it's leading me to wonder, as commissioner, how can I address this issue? And I'll be taking a look at it over the coming months.
And that's probably something people are wondering as commissioner. And I think many people wonder the role of commissioners. I always look at them as the three of you as the mayors of the county.
Oh, that's exactly what we are.
And so how can you impact the assessments as a county commissioner?
Well, I think the first thing you can do is have conversations with the other elected officials involved. And in this case, of course, that means sitting down with the assessor and learning what we don't know about why there is this distance. And maybe there are some good things to learn, and we'll learn those together. And then secondly, the assessor brings all the contracts that they have for, to accomplish the work that they have at their hand that requires a contract to the commissioners. And so in that dialogue between the assessor and the commissioners over what contracts should be signed and what provisions should be in those contracts, I think we'll have some opportunity for change.
Good. And something that just popped in my head in the way I've been, if I don't ask it now, I will completely forget. But first, I will keep Bobby happy and say this is the Charlie Butler Real Estate Show, and with our special guest, County Commissioner Cheryl Musgrave. Cheryl, what I was going to ask was several real estate investors, as we were getting up, and they said, you're always talking about Cheryl, we need to vote for. Why do we need to vote for? Well, one of the things that you and I have discussed before, and I know you've felt passionate about, is like the permits were the most heavily permitted. That's probably not the right way to put
licenses.
it. License. Thank you. In the state, and we're still. I think we still got a law from the 40s for the dollar amount that a contractor can do. But you spoke a lot about that, so I'm going to let you speak about that. Why people who are trying to better the community by taking some of these blighted properties and making them nice properties, why they should believe in you?
Well, the Building Commission is a joint city-county department, so the funding is joint city-county, and there's an ordinance that lays out the specifications for this. Well, one of the things we need to do is make Vanderburgh County more competitive, and why we have at least 47 licenses that you have to have for building in Vanderburgh County, as opposed to the one license you have to have in Posey, and I believe Gibson, and I think it's Warwick County too.
Warwick is not.
Yeah, you need the one.
Anything like what we do.
Well, there's only one license required by the state, and that's the plumbing license. But Vanderburgh County has seen fit over the years to add 46 separate licenses to that number. And plus, any work that you do that's valued at more than $500 that you need a permit for. Well, I think it's time that we took away the barriers to building Vanderburgh County into a great place that will, go far into the future, meeting the needs of this century. I think it's time that we took a look at that licensing ordinance and stripped those away. And we can replace that with something meaningful, like a registry. So in other words, I'm saying this in advance of all of the hundreds of discussions I'm going to be having.
Right.
But the concept here is sign up on a registry saying that you're going to be a contractor, and then post a bond so that in case you do things poorly, we can help the folks that you didn't get what they were paid for. And then we're still going to come and inspect, and maybe we're going to figure out new ways to use new technology to do those inspections. For example, does an inspector need to come every time, or can you post a video? Can you take a video of what you've just done and send it in, or a number of still pictures, that we define how those are done? So in other words, you can get started with your building project right away. All you need to do is register, post your bond, and comply with the inspection process. Have at it, folks. Build away, getting the right zoning And let's raise that $500 threshold for work to a more meaningful number. And so what is that meaningful number? Maybe it's a $3,000 worth of work that you'd have to do. And maybe you'll pay a little bit more for that permit because, remember, I still need to make sure that the building commission functions as a department.
Right.
We need to pay the inspectors and we need to pay the people there. So I need to make sure the revenue going in there still meets the needs of the government.
It just doesn't need to be
47
a lot of
licenses.
Yeah. And so, is that true? I know we've talked about this, we're the most heavily licensed county in the state.
That is what I have been told by knowledgeable people. So
in Indianapolis, in Marion County.
Yeah, it's easier to do business there.
That's amazing. And I know, I know investors that do things in Warwick County simply because it has become too difficult.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There are lots of contractors who either cannot ever get a building permit here because it just takes too long. You have to take a test, and the test can take you, 3 months to accomplish. Well, by that time, your competitor has gotten the business that you were getting the license to do anyway. And then there are those who came here, cleared all the hurdles, got all the right licenses and right permits, and it was so much work, and there are so many continuing ed requirements that they just say, never again. Well, golly, if you really want to be effective in today's market, is that the message you really want to send to prospective builders in our community or people who want to buy land to build something? Is those the barriers that you want? I don't think so. I think it's time to dismantle that and put a more effective, meaningful system in place.
I think we both want to be clear here. While I agree with you 100%, we need to streamline this process. We've talked about this. We're not talking about people who don't do things the right way.
Right.
That is, and something's been talked about a lot, and I don't know we've talked about this much, but some of the blight, some of the homes that just, unfortunately we've got those around the community that have deteriorated, and and I don't know which part of this is a city and which part's a county here. So, you want to speak to kind of how your feelings as a commissioner on that?
Well, the blight was caused by many factors. Predatory lending in the early part of this century that led to that real estate bubble. And it didn't just affect Evansville and Vanderburgh County. It affected the whole country, and some could point to various parts of the world. So, our system of building licenses did not lead to that. That had many other causes. But if you want to fix one of those properties up, that's the first thing you run into is the building licenses and permits. And if you already own a home and you've bought a second piece of property and you're going to fix that up, you're not even allowed to work on it yourself. You have to hire a contractor. So that's the sort of issue that's in front of you. But those houses, the ones that you see being torn down by the city, those houses that fail to pay their property taxes go up on 2 separate government sales. And after it fails to sell at the second sale, that is when it becomes eligible for government ownership. And so the city has taken some of those in a certain geographic area. I can't remember if they've named this geographic area, but it's in the older sections of town. They're taking those properties under their own ownership. So they'll be city-owned properties, and they're tearing a number of them down to create opportunities for rebuilding. The rest of them will be left on the county's desk to handle. And so I will have to look at that process, decide whether the county needs a land bank too, the city set up a land bank to handle their properties, or whether we want to take another approach. But clearing the blight, that's pretty much step one. That blight's not going to get better by itself.
No, it's going to get worse if we don't do
Much
something.
worse. But there are so many factors that play into that. And we, as a community, we have to address all of the factors.
The time has flown by, Cheryl. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I know, yes, this is a real estate show, Charlie Butler Real Estate Show, and we're with County Commissioner Cheryl Musgrave. But let's move off real estate for a little bit for a second. And I'm going to throw open a general question to you. What is your overall vision of what you want to accomplish as a county commissioner?
Well, I really want to accomplish a great place to live, work, and play. And that takes excellent roads, good roads, excellent roads. It takes great water and sewer. There are parts of the county. Remember, the commissioners only deal with the unincorporated area, so we're not dealing with the city's sewer mandate or any of those. We're talking about extending sewer to parts of the county for development, or extending sewer where there already has been a development and there isn't any, and looking to the future in what are our other needs. For example, broadband access. If we don't have broadband access to an area, I can guarantee you development's not going to occur there.
Right.
And folks' needs are going to be falling through the cracks. Whether you're out there with an abandoned car, or your car just had a flat tire by the side of the road, and you need to call 911, and you have 0 bars on your cell phone, that's a very real issue. Or whether you're an entrepreneur and or a farmer and trying to communicate with the very sophisticated electronics between your farm equipment and satellites, if there's no broadband, you can't compete in today's world. So
I want to complain as a constituent right now, okay? No, although I live in Newburgh, so I guess I am a constituent. But on the north side, there's a big part of the north, nice areas in the north side where you completely drop cell service.
Right. Yeah, that shouldn't happen in a wonderful county like Vanderburgh.
And we're talking about it. $300,000 homes around us, and we're and we have no cell service.
So broadband access, great roads, and the other infrastructure of water and sewer. Those are the key things I'm going to be focusing on.
So what's first? Well, I mean, I guess I know. You've got 2 other commissioners,
right.
So it's the 3 of you that have to reach consensus. So what do you feel like is on the agenda first and I'm not necessarily talking about the mundane things, but things that are really going to be important to the public?
Well, roads are first, and you'll start seeing action. We have to wait for the legislature, sort of. They have a big road funding program this year. Some of that money that they're talking about trickles down to the local level. We need it. We are, $2.3 million short of what we need to keep our roads in exactly the same shape. So road funding is critically important, whether it's provided to us by the state or raised here at the local level. And I think you'll hear a lot of talk in the coming weeks on both those levels.
Cheryl, our half hour is almost gone. Anything you want to say in conclusion?
Well, change is a whole lot of fun to roll out there, and this is, I'll start laughing now. I know that change is difficult, and I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible, but I want to hear from everybody too. I can't do just things that I think are right. I do need to understand from everyone how we can do things and how we can do them better. So I'm asking for feedback.
So, and Cheryl, as far as website, what's the best way to contact you if someone really, feels like they need to contact you about something?
Well, I think they should call down to the commission office. Okay. I would give you an email address, but everybody, I think, has a phone. Call 812-435-5241.
Okay. And We've been talking this last half hour, and I don't think she'll mind me saying this, to a true maverick.
Gosh, thanks.
Who is someone who's never, since I've known her, been afraid to buck the system a little bit, and has got tremendous results.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. Let's see if we can make some more great strides together.
Cheryl Musgrave, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
And again, this is the Charlie Butler Show. Remember, Charlie Butler team, if you're looking for a home, we're the team. If we can't sell it, we'll buy it. So give us a call, 449-0050 or 499-7758. Or also for lending, don't forget about Evie Barr and the great folks at Waterstone Mortgage. And Evie will be back next week to tell you more about that. So for Cheryl Musgrave, this is Charlie Butler. Y'all have a great, great weekend.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on WGBF AM with the guy who guarantees to sell your home or he'll buy it himself, Charlie Butler. Join us every week at this time to find out how to sell your home quickly and for more money. For more information, email cbutler@kw.com or visit charliebutlerteam.com.